Good morning, everybody. This is my third recording of the day, and I am very pleased with myself because it is only 10 o'clock, and I've already got 2 of these in the can, and I'm about to do this one. And I actually thought of this one as I was recording the last one. So this kind of goes with the same. If you didn't listen to the last episode, it was really about that you cannot help everybody and you need to focus in on the service you're providing to only the people that need it. And as I was going through that, I talked a little bit about people worrying about pricing. And this is a very common issue that I run into because people never tend to do the math of what they actually need to charge in order to live. They instead try to think of, well, what do I think my audience would pay for this service? And that is the incorrect way to think about it. Because first off, as business owners, we chronically undervalue the service we provide, and we also chronically undervalue our service's position in the market. Part of this is humility, I think. Part of it is just a natural not wanting to overstep the bounds. But the other part of this, the more prevalent part, is a lack of self-confidence. And we all know what this sounds like. This is the business owner that goes, oh, I mean, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Like, there's other people that are better. I can't charge what they're charging. So I just got to take what I can get, right? Or like the guy that owns the hot dog stand thinking like, well, listen, people aren't going to pay more than $5 for a hot dog. Why? Because he wouldn't pay $5 for a hot dog. That's because he knows what a hot dog's worth. He knows how the magic trick is done. So obviously he's not going to pay more than what he thinks it's worth. But the guy that doesn't understand why that guy's hot dogs are the best in the business and he's so addicted to them and he wants 6 of them a day, he would probably pay $10 a hot dog because he loves them so much. Now, I don't know if anyone's going to pay $10 a hot dog. They probably would. Criff Dog in New York, phenomenal hot dogs. I think there's probably like $7 or $8 for a hot dog. So it happens. There's certainly, I don't think $10 is that crazy of an idea, but it just goes to show that the value that you put on something as the business owner is often completely divorced from the actual value your customer is going to put on the product. And I think a lot of this overcoming that needs to come in really 2 forms. And the first form is that you need to calculate how much you need to live. And this goes back to the last episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, make sure you listen to that one because I touch on this, but I'll touch on it briefly again here. So when you are looking at how much you need to live, there's really 2 numbers. There's your baseline. This is to pay all my bills, to not run up debt, right? What do I need to make? And that's your first number. And then your second number needs to be what you'd consider your like goal, right? What is your growth goal? Is it to grow 15%? Is it to grow 25%? And then depending on your business, you may have a gross revenue goal and a net revenue goal. For example, I think we've grown like 100% this year, gross revenue, 25% net revenue. So like I monitor both of those because that helps me then figure out what my margins look like how do my margins increase as I add people to the team, right? But you need to understand like what is that main goal that you have. And then if you want to have another goal above that, that's like your stretch goal, then it never hurts to have a stretch goal. It never hurts if you aim at the moon and you land in a tree, you're still above the ground. So go ahead, have the stretch goal. But you need to know what that number is. You need to know what your break even is on. So the next number you need to figure out how many clients you can deliver top tier service to. Absolute top tier, right? The best you can do, the best way you can guarantee their success. How many clients can you take, right? And that is whatever clients means to you. If you're a dog walker, it might mean individual dogs. If you're a hairstylist, it might be individual clients. If you are a karate studio, it might be kids or families. It could be whatever, right? Any type of service business is going to have a number that physically they cannot take more of without sacrificing quality. For a hairstylist, say you have 7 seats. Your turnover for a haircut is an hour. Let's say like at a fancy salon and you have 7 seats, or let's just 8 seats to make the numbers, right? And there's only 8 hours in a day. Then realistically, you're going to have 64 customers a day that you can fit because you have 8 chairs, 8 hours in a day, 8 customers at a time, right? So you have 64 clients a day, right? The only way for you to grow that business would be to either add an additional seat, right, which would take real estate, which if you don't have the real estate, then that becomes not an option, or speed up the haircuts, which would then could reduce quality, right, or the perceived quality, right? Even if your hairstylist can work in half the time, but they're not as chit-chatty, they're not doing as much customer development, people feel rushed out of the place. Yes, you might make more money, but you're going to hurt your long-term retention and referability because people are going to be like, I really feel rushed there. They didn't do quite as good a job. They washed the dye out of my hair too quickly, or whatever hairstylists get graded on. So you're thinking you can't grow that way, right? It would make sense if you could maintain that quality of service in half the time, but chances are you're not going to do that. So then your only other lever is price, right? So if you don't have the space and you don't want to drop the quality, then you need to ratchet up the price, and that's how you unlock growth. And a lot of people are worried about that because they go, well, what if I double my prices and I lose half my clients? What happens? And I was like, that's a positive because you're still making the same amount of money on those half of your clients. And now you've opened up an additional 4 seats that you can add similar clients to your roster. And if that number, if when you calculate it out, is based on your current prices, is below your break-even number, then you need to raise prices so that you can trim down the fat in terms of your customer base and attract higher paying clients to provide that level of income that you need. And that is really scary. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. And I will tell you from experience that one of the things that is a huge mistake is promising like a lifetime price where, okay, you sign up today and you're only going to pay this, because I got burned on that. I had clients that hung around for years getting $2,400 worth of services for $100 a month. And I was coming out of pocket to provide those. And it was taking up time on my calendar. It was taking up my team's time doing this work for them. And that's like, that hurts. And you don't want to fire them because they're a happy customer. They've been with you a long time. But the reason they're with you a long time is because they are used to paying so little that it doesn't make sense for them to leave. And so I would never promise not to increase price. But I think if you have a very good client, there are benefits that you can give them. You say, listen, you've been a long-term client. We love having you around. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you that price, but in exchange for that price, you have to give me 1 referral a month, right? So that at least that now turns into that expenditure you have that is not covered by what they're paying you, turns into a marketing investment. So say someone, let's just stay with a beauty salon, right? Say you charge, when people first started coming in, you charged $50 for a cut and style, right? And now you want to go to $99 and you're worried that those $50 folks aren't going to stay. Well, so what you go to each of them and you say, listen, really appreciate your ongoing business. We are raising prices. Here's what I'm going to do for you. For every month you send me a referral and they come in and book with me, I'm going to give you a haircut for $50 and I'm not going to raise the price. But if there's any months that you don't send me, then we have to charge you the regular rate. And most people will say that is perfectly fair because what they understand is that you have to get paid and that you have to raise rates, and you're giving them a way to get the same rate they're used to with very minimal work, right? You're not asking them to post about you every day on social media. They're just saying, hey, you probably talk to you're a professional woman. You probably talk to a lot of other professional women who want their hair done right. You like coming here. Just send us some people. Send us 1 person a week. Give us their name. Give us their contact information, or tell us when they book a call that, hey, you sent them, and we'll give you the money off your haircut, right? It's a very easy way to make that transition. So that's what I would recommend. The other option you can take is just giving people plenty of notice. So telling people, hey, at the end of the year, our rates are going up, assuming they come in for like a monthly cut and style, that kind of thing. These last 3 haircuts are going to be the regular price, but in January, if you come back, it's going to be this price. In addition to that, another thing you can do is if there's a price increase coming, you can offer those people the ability to pay in advance for those haircuts as a way to generate some positive cash flow to cover any losses you might experience after you increase. So this is not money to go out and blow at the bar or spend buying yourself a new house or anything like that. This is money you put in the bank so that in case when you raise prices, you lose more than half of your clients and you suddenly are in the red for a bit, you have money to cover your marketing expense. You have money to cover those few months while you rebuild the practice. So that's one option. You can sell, hey, here's a year subscription and it's going to cost you $1,000. But if you would normally come in every month, it would cost you $1,500 or whatever. right? So you just give them a deal, you take all the money up front. Now you're sitting on a bunch of cash that can help you smooth out the next couple of months as you have the prices increase. So that's the first piece, is like, you just need to know what you need to break even and what your initial goal is and how that relates to how many clients you're bringing in. The other piece you need to understand is what is your cost per acquisition and how long is the payback period on that acquisition. The way I like doing marketing and client retention is that I would like to be paid back on the first transaction for the entire cost per acquisition. And so that's my goal. Now, not every business is going to be able to accomplish that. But if you set your goal as that like, well, listen, if my cost per acquisition is $1,000, I need the first thing they buy to be $1,000, then it does set a good metric for you to track how effective your marketing is being. Now, for some businesses, like a hair salon or like a lower priced service, so like maybe it's like, let me think, like a driving range, for example, that's like $35 to go there and hit some balls or something like that. If the cost per acquisition for that driving range is $150, well, clearly it's going to take a few months to make that back. But I would also then use that and say, well, listen, are we actually going to, these people are only coming in once a month for $30 and it's a $150 payback period, which means we need to keep them for 5 months before we see a profit. That's not good marketing, right? Like, the payback period there is way, way too long. And so I think being really honest with yourself about what your acquisition cost is, including your salespeople's time or your time, because a lot of people don't include that in the cost per acquisition. They just consider what the cost, they just look at well, here's what I spent on marketing and here's how many clients I brought in and I'm just going to divide this up and that's no, it's how many hours did you spend with all the people that didn't close. You have to factor that number in too to get your true cost per acquisition. So you really should focus on trying to make up that entire cost per acquisition in one shot, the first transaction, or at the bare minimum within your average customer's lifetime value. And so if this ties into like what your churn rate is, like how often are customers leaving your business after they start? So for a long time, I guess the long time average, I think I've always kept with coaching businesses around 9 months. Like, most people stay for 9 months. And so like one of the mistakes I made was I did a lifetime deal and I priced it at 9 months because I was like, well, the average is going to stay for 9 months. If I sell a bunch of these lifetime, half of them won't stay for 9 months. Well, what ended up happening is people actually ended up staying for a lot longer and a lot shorter. I had some people buy and never show up to a single meeting. I had some people buy and they show up to every meeting and have showed up to every meeting for the last 2 years. And so like, if I look at all those numbers and I even them out, it's like, well, maybe it all evened out in the wash. But it definitely changed the overall lifetime value of my customer numbers by implementing such a drastic kind of pricing change. So you need to understand, like, your lifetime value of a customer is going to change anytime you change prices, and you can't always count on that to be an accurate measure, but it's important to track it. It's important to know, because when you launch a new marketing campaign and you're trying to figure out, hey, is this thing going to be profitable? And you're not able to be profitable on that first transaction, you really need to make sure that your average lifetime value, your average churn, like when people stop coming to you, is well after your payback period for that initial marketing. So I know this has gotten kind of like deep into the financial side of this equation and like how you calculate these things and the numbers. And like, I started this by really talking about just the belief system that you need to change that you're actually valued. So I do want to kind of come back to this. The reason I go to the math part is because math is hard to argue with. I can tell you you're great. And I tell all my clients that I believe in them and that I think they're wonderful people and they have value and they should charge more. And I'm constantly prodding them to charge more and provide better service to their client and not focus on the quantity and focus on the quality. I'm constantly parroting these things to them. I'm constantly reinforcing how much I believe in them and how I do believe that they're worth the money they're thinking about charging. But at the end of the day, you still may have people in your environment that are toxic, that are talking down to you, that are making you feel less than. You're still going to have sales calls where people tell you you're priced too high, which is a huge blow to your ego and makes you start doubting everything you're doing. You still have these outside influences, which we'll talk about in another video. Maybe I'll try to pull 4 off in a day. I mean, I'll do the next one. But you're going to have these outside influences in your life that are constantly telling you that your pricing is wrong. And that is also, it's very hard for you to argue with because that's their opinion, right? And so you're like, well, it gives you a lot of self-doubt. It's like, I mean, if all these people won't pay, like, I don't stand a chance here. When you compare the two, when you compare the anecdotal of these people said that they're not going to pay me for this amount, and it's 4 or 5 people, but then you look at the hard numbers and you say, well, listen, in order to make this work, I need to charge this price. And that is the bottom line, right? That trumps anything they believe. Nothing they believe matters, because that in order to live the life you want, you need to bring home $10,000 a month in income, whatever the number is. I don't know, I'm just picking 10,000 because it's a nice round number. Whatever your number is, 4,000, 5,000, 20,000, whatever it is, that you need that to live. And you also know that in order to provide the best level of service, you can only take a certain amount of clients. And then all you have to do is then divide those numbers. This is how much I need to make. This is how many clients. And then there's how much you need to charge them each month or each service, or however you price your services. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that helped change your mindset from one of feeling an emotion and self-doubt and negativity and like making this a self-valuation issue. And instead, it's simple math. It is simple math. Your electrical bill is going to come regardless of whether you made any money this month, and they're going to expect you to pay it whether or not you made any money this month. They're not going to go and say, oh, wow, yeah, I get why you didn't make money because your pricing was too low. Since you were so nice to provide this service at a lower price point, we're going to lower your bill. It doesn't work that way. Your bill is going to be the same amount regardless, right? Your cable bill isn't going to change. So because we know those things, because we know that there is a fixed cost to exist in this world, you need to price your business based on that fixed cost and based on your capability of providing the highest quality service available within the restraints you have in the business. So I hope that helps. Thank you again for joining me and listening to this. I sincerely do hope it was helpful. If you have other topics that you want me to cover, leave them in the comments. Send me an email. Send me a message. I am more than happy to take ideas from you and to really dig into them. I do all of this to create a diary for my daughter so that she can look back and see, like, she's 2 right now, and I really want her to be able to see, like, man, what was my dad doing up there in his office all the time working on growing this business? Why was he spending all this time? So if you could share this with other people, that would help get my numbers up so my daughter can one day look back on this and think like, wow, my dad was really popular. He had a lot of friends watching his video. That's my selfish ask. If you want more information about any of my programs or how I help clients, feel free to reach out, but that's really not the reason I'm doing this. The only reason I'm doing this is really to try to capture the lessons I'm learning in this journey to help other people. And like I said, to leave a diary for my daughter to follow along with when hopefully she starts her own entrepreneurial journey. So with that, thank you again so much, and I will see you next time. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to like and follow my page to see more of my content, and subscribe to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to check out the full episodes. You can find all those links in the description.